Okay, Madam Chair, we are live and recording.
All right. I now call the October 13th, 2020 remote meeting of the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education to order. All board members are participating by simultaneous communication. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Board members, as I call your name, please say present. Board Member Rhonda Cheek,
Present.
Board Member Dr. Ruby Jones,
Present.
Board Member Carol Sawyer,
Present.
Board Member Margaret Marshall,
Present.
Board Member Sean Strain,
Present.
Board Member Lenora Shipp,
Present.
Board Member Jennifer Delahara,
Present.
Board Vice Chair Thelma Byers Bailey,
Present.
Board Chair Elise Dashew.
Present.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum with 9 members present.
All right, thank you. I will now entertain a motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Okay, motion from Thelma Byers Bailey, second from Carol Sawyer?
Yes.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hands and say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Do we have any opposed? Okay, Madam Clerk, the agenda is adopted by a unanimous vote of 9-0. I'm now going to call on at-large board member Jennifer De La Hara to introduce tonight's pledge leader.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our pledge leader tonight is Callie Robles, a junior at South Mecklenburg High School. Callie has been active throughout her education in academic and extracurricular activities. She has completed an Outward Bound program and participated in an exchange program with a school in Costa Rica. She is also a Rotary Certified New Gen Peace Builder. At South Meck, she is also a member of the National Spanish Honor Society and the Gender Sexuality Alliance. Callie is a middle school tutor and also a student leader in the One State, One Rate equity campaign led by the Our Turn organization. Callie wants to continue her education by going to college. She is interested in Davidson College or New York University. She has not decided on her major yet, but she would like to work with social sciences and/or social justice issues. However, she knows one thing for sure. She wants to get a minor in Spanish language and culture. We're delighted to have Callie join us tonight. She will be making a brief statement related to National Hispanic Heritage Month after she leads the Pledge of Allegiance in both English and Spanish.
And everyone, if you would mute your, everyone except for Callie, if you would mute yourselves during the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación ante Dios indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos.
Would you like to share your message with us?
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Callie Robles, and I am a junior at South Meck High School. I consider myself to be a Latinx person, or rather, someone with heritage in Latin America. I am also bicultural. My mom is from Michigan, and my dad is from Guatemala. I went to Collins Language Academy, a dual language K-8 school, and my younger sisters still go there. It was incredible to be taught by teachers from all over Latin America and Spain, and to learn about their own cultures and traditions. Now, in my junior year, I'm taking Latin American studies in Spanish to complement my Spanish education. We learn about the history and cultural practices of each Latin American country. The real-life Latin American experience in the United States isn't so clear-cut. Take, for example, my family. We speak English most of the time at home, but we also have dance parties and sing-alongs to our favorite canciones. We eat typical American foods, but my sister makes an excellent dulce de leche cake. The cultural balance varies. I feel that the same is true for most Latin American families in the US, especially those with parents from different countries. They aren't just Ecuadorian, or just Cuban, or just Costa Rican, but they participate in a variety of cultural products, practices, and perspectives from other Spanish-speaking countries. This cultural balance also applies in other areas. At school, Latin American students sometimes don't feel that they can fully be themselves the way they are at home or with close friends. That is why it is so important to celebrate Hispanic culture in the US. We need to be proud of our community members who identify as Hispanic. There needs to be more recognition than just having a "Are you of Latino or Hispanic origin" checkbox on official forms. Almost a quarter of CMS students are Latinx and/or bicultural, and the community needs to encourage us to be our authentic selves to promote a safe space where we can grow not just as learners, but as people. Tonight, I invite you to embrace us, the bicultural, bilingual generation of students, and to accept us not just as American or just as Hispanic, but as both, the generation that will shape the future of our country. Thank you.
Thank you for that message, Ms. Robles. All right. We are now going to move on to requests from the public, and the rules are as follows. Each speaker will be called in to speak one at a time unless you are part of a group. Each speaker will have a maximum of 3 minutes to address the board. Groups will have 10 minutes. Each speaker may speak on any topic of their choice except for individual student matters or specific personnel matters. Personal attacks will not be allowed. Profanity or other inappropriate language will not be allowed. The board reserves the right to cut off and mute any speaker who violates these rules. And with that, I'm going to list the names of the first 3 speakers, and if you would allow them into the meeting. First will be Lawrence Brinson, followed by Mary McCormick, and then Stacy Staggs.
And I do not see Mr. Brinson in the audience, so we'll move on to Mary McCormick.
All right. Ms. McCormick, you have the podium.
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Good evening. Today marks 7 months since our children have set foot inside of a school or a classroom. This is over 210 days that they have not seen other students, a single teacher, or have had any sort of structure. How is this still okay with everyone? As a working mom of 2 young children, I have witnessed my 7- and 9-year-old become a shell of their once youthful, innocent selves. They are now balls of nerves and nervous wrecks that worry daily. I'm watching their innocence slip away each day, and it is gut-wrenching. This is a time in their lives where they should be looking forward to learning. Instead, my 2nd grader tells us daily how much he hates school. He is 7 years old on a Zoom call with 34 children to 2 teachers trying to learn foundational skills that he will need forever. I walked in the other day to find him holding up his math equations to the camera on screen, and my heart broke that this is how my child is trying to learn basic math. He is expected to also type his questions in a chat box. Type. Are we just skipping the importance of reading and writing and expecting my child who has an IEP to fully spell and type now as well? And not to mention, he is done for the day at 10:45 with a 3-hour break. We are right back to where we were in March, a total disaster. I also have a 3rd grade EC child with a severe learning delay, a child that thrives on structure, consistency, and being in a school environment, all which was ripped away from her overnight. An EC child with close to 3 hours of in-school services daily that was not even considered part of the 1,000 kids that are now back in school. Let me remind everyone, there are over 15,000 EC students within CMS. 1,000 of those students are back in school. Stop saying you're taking care of EC students when you are not. 1,000 out of 15,000 is barely 7% of your exceptional children. This is criminal, in my opinion. I have not heard any other information other than your robocalls, and we have no idea if and when my EC child will be getting more days in school. The silence is absolutely deafening. My daughter was easily a year behind her peers in March, and I can honestly say the regression we have seen in the past months is horrific. Just because I can provide Wi-Fi does not mean that way of learning works for my daughter. She is now easily 2 years behind her peers. How is my learning delayed EC child with a lack of social skills learning anything sitting at my dining room table? These past 7 months have been an absolute nightmare. I do not have the luxury to work from home as I'm considered an essential worker. The assumption that there is always a parent home to sit by their side is callous at best. I have sat on every single one of these board calls, and all I keep hearing about are the countless mold, sewage, and HVAC issues that should have been addressed when first reported. You let these schools fall to the wayside, and you are now using our children as negotiating tools to get them fixed. Newsflash, COVID is not the reason you have poor filtration systems. The system ignoring your initial request is prior to this pandemic is. I have lost count of the daily tantrums, anxiety attacks, and watched the daily shift in my children's behavior and personality. Robbed of this mental learning. They need to be back in the classroom.
Thank you. All right, next we have Stacy Staggs, followed by Jamie Keough.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Dashiell. My name's Stacy Staggs, and like the speaker before me, I have children who are in the Exceptional Children's Program. In addition to their educational needs, each has an IEP, they also have complex medical needs. So I have been watching with a great amount of interest and an equal amount of fear as leadership, not only in the district, but also the county, state, and of course federal, make decisions about whether or not they can return to school. In our current state, the girls are home. We are doing distance learning, and it is not easy, but they are safe. I have been paying attention to the CMS dashboard as well as the Mecklenburg Public Health dashboard that shows our case count is continuing to climb. And we have just in the last week crossed 30,000 cases in Mecklenburg County alone. When I look at the CMS dashboard, although it's updated weekly, I can't say that I'm clear or that enough information is provided or that I have confidence in the accuracy of that information. I would like CMS to address how they plan to make the dashboard, number one, more readable, number two, more complete and accurate, comprehensive to then give us confidence in those numbers. I would like to draw your attention to an article recently published by WFAE, the reporter Ann Doss Helms, who's been doing fantastic work throughout. Now, we do know that about 1,000 students have returned as of September 29th and are in the classroom. It would include my daughters had I not made the choice to keep them home for safety. And a quote from the article says, even with less than 1% of students attending in-person classes, CMS has moved to a yellow zone on both measures used to gauge the spread of virus in schools. The readiness dashboard shows that between 10 and 50 of 175 schools had at least one positive case and or at least 25 people in quarantine during the past 14 days. Now, again, this is with 1,000 students roughly back in the buildings. What we need going forward is confidence in the reporting, and that can only be achieved with both transparency and accountability. We need to know which of these cases are being tracked, because I can tell you of the people I've talked to, and that number is big, nobody has confidence that these are all of the cases that exist in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Staggs. Next, we have Jamie Keough, if Jamie is here, followed by the next two after Jamie will be Samantha Rich and Lori DeCenzo Carter.
And we do not have Miss Rich, so we'll start with Jamie and jump to Lori.
Okay.
Good evening, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hi, sorry, technical problems. There we go.
No worries.
Right, good evening. Thank you all for your time. I just wanted to, my message is quite simple. My feeling is that there is not sufficient choice for parents. There are some parents that don't want their children to go to in-person teaching, and I understand that, and that's their choice. But the damage I'm seeing being done to my children who are elementary, and it's painful to see. It really is. And while I understand we need to have choice, we do have to do in-person teaching. They're just not learning. It's not satisfactory what's going on. And I just don't feel that the board, who claim to be flexible and move around as the numbers dictate, you really don't. You close the school down in an instant. That was great and the right thing to do at the time. But my opinion is now the dashboard shows the school should be open, and the damage that you're doing to kindergarten through 5th grade is irreparable. I urge you to reconsider, show how flexible we are. The plans must be there to open the schools within 3 weeks, because they should have been there from August. It really is not good enough. We've got schools all around us that are open in Virginia, South Carolina. They've all gone in for 2-3 days a week, then moved to full-time schooling. They're open. You should be open. We should be open. Children should be in school. It really isn't good enough that you think it's okay to go to part-time schooling in November. I'm imploring you to change your minds. I'm imploring you to reconsider and reopen the schools, certainly through kindergarten through 5th grade, from November the 2nd. You should have the plan in place, because you should have been planning to do it in August. Now, I understand that you want to be safe, and I understand safety is primary for everybody. But the numbers in Mecklenburg don't dictate what you're doing to the children right now. That's really all I've got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Keel. Next, we have Ms. Carter, followed by Dawn Hanrahan, and then Robin Shaw.
Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I asked to speak tonight because I wanted to address some misconceptions that have been shared with the public in recent board meetings. First of all, at the September 15th board meeting, the amount of time students were spending on their computers was raised. It was stated that some lessons and assignments have run long as educators make up for time lost during last spring's hasty decision to switch to remote learning. This is patently untrue. The district itself handed down the mandated minutes of synchronous and asynchronous learning. The district also mandated that all students and teachers remain in their virtual classrooms for the duration of each class. The issue appears to have been addressed in the synchronous learning playbook, but it does not specifically state that students may log off during asynchronous learning time. I do believe that administrators, teachers, and students would appreciate any additional clarification. Secondly, at the last emergency board meeting, it was mentioned that elementary staff will have one full day where students will be asynchronous and teachers will be able to pull small groups and participate in PD. Based on the teachers that I've spoken with, and there are many, all teachers would honestly appreciate a full asynchronous day to contact parents, plan lessons with their colleagues, update grades, and complete paperwork required by both our schools and the school district. Lastly, as a solution to information that seems to be contrary to what teachers are expressing, I would like to make the recommendation that until we return to school 100% full-time under safe conditions, that the board entertain the idea of allowing for teacher representation at all future meetings. After all, there is student representation. This could be in the form of the NCAE head or other fairly appointed teachers whose voices represent the majority. Thank you in advance for your consideration.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. Next, we have Dawn Hanrahan, followed by Robin Shaw, and then Amanda Thompson Rice.
Hi, thank you for Hi, my name is Dawn Hannigan. My family is new to CMS in the Charlotte area. My boys are in grades 4 at OP, 7, 8 at South Charlotte Middle. Our experience with CMS has been solely in a remote setting. I am fortunate that I was able to take a leave from work to help them with the school year at the beginning. I've been an educator for 21 years, and I cannot imagine how families are able to support their children when working full time, at least to start the school year. The beginning felt like a daily nightmare, especially for 2 of them. My 8th grader is a verbal, and after learning the system CMS uses, such as Canvas, he has done very well. My other 2 children have a difficult time in school and are not verbal learners. A pure online education is nearly impossible for 70% of us who learn through other means. The bumps, which have felt like mountains, could not have been possible to overcome without the team effort and support of the instructional and support staff. The staff have never known my children before this year, and getting to know them in the setting is incredibly difficult, but due to the care and determination they have. My boys have gone from daily cries, anxiety attacks, anger, to feeling accepted and understood. I commend the staff who are working so hard to connect and teach our children. Everyone has been thrown into the situation, but you all should be proud of the job teachers and support staff are doing. I urge everyone on the board to keep this in mind when deciding on curriculum expectations, school initiatives, and analyzing the student achievement data. Our children are trying the best they can. Our families are trying the best to support them in the best they can. And our teachers and school counselors are working harder than ever. They deserve unconditional support from administration and the community. I'm a firm believer for my children and all children that if they could, they would. This online environment allows for about 30% of our children to be academically successful, but because of the care and knowledge and perseverance of the staff, my 2 boys at least now feel accepted and a level of success they didn't feel before. Special thanks to Mrs. Houston, Mrs. Rickle, Mrs. Bones, Mrs. Pozo, Mr. Ladone, Mrs. McDonald.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got to be careful not to speak specifically to individuals. Okay, thank you very much. So next we have Robin Shaw, followed by Amanda Thompson-Rice.
Good evening, distinguished board members, Superintendent Winston, youth leaders from the school system. I'm so grateful for an opportunity to address you this evening. Thank you. That's all this is about. It's just a thank you to Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools Board and district staff for your ongoing dedicated support of the Leukemia Lymphoma Society. My name is Robin Shaw. I serve as campaign manager for LLS locally. I have the great honor of working with many schools in CMS in our very engaging, empowering community service learning program called the Hero Squad, formerly known as Pennies for Patients. CMS has been a proud supporter of LLS for many years, and we are honored to partner with our students as community leaders, much like you. LLS is a global leader in the fight against cancer and is a front runner in the mission for a cure. We serve blood cancer patients in our community, and many of them are young people in our schools, kids fighting leukemia and lymphoma. And we provide support, personalized disease and treatment information, clinical trial connections, and financial assistance to many, many patients. Our program allows students at every participating school to receive lots of free resources, including a supplemental STEM curriculum and social and emotional learning activities. These resources that we provide reinforce something that we now know is primary: social and emotional competency. We know that the health and well-being of every student at CMS is paramount, especially in this unique year, but all the time, and not just for them, but for us as adults as well. When schools choose to participate in Hero Squad, students are united and ignited because they get to practice teamwork and empathy and respect for others, and they integrate these competencies right into the school culture with an exciting goal, a common goal: changing cancer. Hero Squad's wealth of activities and resources can be used virtually and in person, so we are so pleased to be flexible with you. Any classroom setting, we meet schools where they are to engage and empower every student. Your community leadership, all of you on this call, provides support for students to learn, to grow, to explore, to succeed. We are grateful for every opportunity to work with the Charlotte-Mecklenburg School, and I thank the school board. I thank the district staff who have been working so hard, but especially for your thoughtful and intentional leadership. Our community grows stronger because of your commitment. You are much appreciated by all of us at LLS, and we want to continue to be your community partner in education. I really appreciate so much a few moments of your time, and I look forward to our continuing partnership and hearing more of the good coming from Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools.
Thank you, Ms. Shaw. So next we have Mrs. Thompson-Rice, followed by Darina Cooper, and then Steve Ariskovic. Mrs. Thompson-Rice, you have the podium. But you're muted.
Thank you. All right, let's start it over. Okay. Hello, my name is Amanda Thompson-Rice, a CMS employee, parent, and community advocate. Safe reentry for all. Focus on the perspective of the emotional well-being of our employees. Right now, this pandemic has left us in a conundrum where we pivot, give grace, and still end up leaving the burden to solve all forgotten problems on the backs of our teachers because we're not at the table. Their plates are full. Our educators are teaching, differentiating, providing IT support, supporting students and their families' social and emotional needs, supporting our families, all while balancing the ever-changing expectations of our districts as plans shifts. Educators are burnt out. CMS leaders and board of education members. Acting or not acting are both actions, and we cannot afford you to be neutral. I am here on behalf of 9,000 teachers who are drowning. I read post after post of how they need support. I am here because we need you to act now. Daily, I hear about high quality, hardworking bus drivers, instructional assistants, teachers, APs, and principals ready to quit or retire because they are burnt out, are being forced to return in unsafe conditions. Our vacancies in August was 46, and today we are at 106. It is impossible for teachers to be effective and teach 3 different subgroups, in-person, remote learning rotation, and full remote at the same time. It's not feasible. And the education experience will suffer. Teachers will leave. It's also unfair to leave this burden up to principals to decide. The district's vision is to lead the community in education excellence. We cannot afford to drive away our best educators. We cannot do that if we ask educators to do the impossible. We require additional staff to share the workload of flexibility and time spent on instruction as students return in person. The urgency is now because educators are overworked and on the verge of breakdowns. Wellness and appreciation must start with our employees and end with our students. That's how we maintain and sustain positive and productive school environments. Teachers who are working to the point of exhaustion cannot bring their best to their students. There must be limitations on what they are asked to do and the problems they are asked to solve. Please be humane and reasonable in your asks and your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Darina Cooper, followed by Steve Ariskovic, and then Donata Jackson. Ms. Cooper?
Yes, hello, I'm Darina Cooper. I'm a 2nd grade teacher at Walter G. Byers this year, and I thank you for letting me speak tonight. Yesterday, I hit a wall. I seriously contemplated what I could do if I walked away from a 20-year career in education. I reached out to my CMS family, where people who have only ever seen my name on a social media page encouraged me to hang in there. They reminded me that tomorrow is another day. I'm not alone. My feelings matter. Things will get better. We're all in this together. We've got your back. I am human, and to give myself grace. As teachers, we are exhausted. We are pouring everything we have to give into our students and families and forgetting about ourselves and our families. Then we pull ourselves up by our bootstraps, dust off, and do it again the next day. We show up every day leading by example, allowing our students and families to see our vulnerability, being honest and letting them know we haven't figured this out yet, but we're trying. I am fortunate not to have small children at home and can't even begin to imagine how those trying to teach class, help their own child with learning, and take care of his or her family must feel. I honestly don't know how they're doing it because this is hard. and this is our new normal. We're frustrated because we haven't figured it out, but we all have our why. I'm grateful for the hard work and time that our departments have put into creating Canvas courses for instruction, but consider no child learns in the same way. There is not enough time in the day to review and edit the courses as we need to meet our students' needs for effective instruction. We are online all day, every day. Our special time is consumed with making calls or answering student parent questions, staying on past the end of the day because of one or two that just might get it. By the time I have time to even think about looking at the courses, I'm too tired to look at a screen, or I spend the remainder of my evening working on tomorrow until I force myself to close my laptop and go to bed. The extras and added, such as subplans, walk/zoom through rubrics for formal evaluations, testing, and let's not forget, in exactly 3 weeks from yesterday, we will be expected to meet the needs of on-site and virtual students on the same day. Yes, we will have Wednesdays, but how much of that day will we spend in attendance meetings, PLCs, MTSS, filtering emails, etc.? It's impossible. The same grace and understanding the district has been asking our parents and community for since this journey began in March is not what's being given to teachers. We are exhausted, we are stressed, we do not feel valued. Not being valued, given grace and understanding, is what has so many of us feeling like we're ready to throw the towel in. It's the root of our stress and exhaustion. We do not want to feel this way. Our well-being has to be taken into consideration. We want CMS to be successful, and we want to be part of that success. So I ask you, what are you going to do to support me and so many others that feel exactly the same way? Give me grace and understanding and show me that I'm valued.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. All right, now we have Mr. Oreskovic, followed by Donata Jackson.
Good evening. Time heals all wounds. Time is the wisest counselor of all. Or as the Buddha might say, the trouble is you think we have time. Teachers are running out of time. Time to plan, to grade, to contact parents, to decompress, to attend to our families, to live our lives, to be off screens. Students need time to be off screens too. If we are moving forward to be back in the classroom staring at a screen, then we need time. I'd ask for the board to consider that 1 day a week to get everyone offline. Give teachers a day without mandated PD or hoops to jump through, to plan, to grade, to contact parents, to do what is necessary to best serve the students we teach and care about so deeply as to devote our careers to them, despite our treatment by those in Raleigh. That part we will solve by voting for public education. It just takes time. Does the board have the courage to give their teaching professionals Wednesdays as an asynchronous day? Time will tell. One more thing, and I think I speak for educators across the district. We need teacher voices at the table, not for the one-off quick questioning sessions or focus groups, but as part of the sustained, meaningful conversation moving forward. There is a collective knowledge available that the district is not tapping. Worse, there is a collective experience that is being ignored, which is more tragic as it's our children that suffer through the best laid plans. So if we are not to be offered a seat at the table, we must respectfully ask for one, because we don't have time. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Jackson, you are our final speaker this evening.
Testing my audio, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Great. Good evening, board members and Superintendent Winston. My name is Donata Jackson and I am a Vance High School graduate. I walked in as a 9th grade cheerleader in 1997 and am a part of the first 4-year graduating class at the school. I went back to substitute teach there, was the head cheerleading coach, and volunteer when I can for proctoring and other things. I love my high school, which is why this summer, my best friend and I decided to take part in the renaming process. We listened to the first meeting and presented in the next 2 our name that was Nellie Love High School, a name that means a lot to the original students at Vance. I shared how much we love Miss Love and how much she meant to us in the email that I sent you on September 20th. Tonight, you will change the name of my high school to a person that has no personal connection to the school or help Vance to be successful. I have much admiration and love for Attorney Chambers. However, I really hope that the school will be named after a woman, and more specifically named for a woman that devoted her life to the students at Vance and Geringer High School. I am before you tonight to recommend changes to your renaming policy. Earlier today, I sent emails to Dr. Jones, head of the policy committee, and Mr. Winston, who leads the efforts to modify policy regulation. I am doing this because if you decide to change another school's names, I do not want others to experience what we did because the process was extremely peculiar and has left a bad taste in my mouth for my best friend and I. The first change recommendation is that the word alumni be included in the policy. Currently, it only states students and citizens in the community. It does not call out alumni exclusively, who are a major stakeholder group. By calling out alumni, you make it known that we should play a major role in the process. The second change recommendation that the committee is set up to, this committee should be set up to manage the process, not to participate in the process. The names for bands that were sent to you all were recommendations from the committee. It seemed odd that a committee member could present a name and then vote on that name. This means only committee submitted names will ever be selected in a community. So your community participation was just not even needed. I'm also a bit confused on the process for committee selections. There was only one original Vance teacher on that committee and no original students. I never saw a call to action providing ways to be a part of the committee. There were news stories about the formation of a committee and about the renaming being underway, but no real step-by-step way to be on the committee. I've also sent an email to Mr. Winston, who he has replied, to formally ask that Vance Media Center be named after Ms. Love, as I still feel she deserves to be honored. She played a major role in Vance's early success. I look forward to hearing from you all regarding the policy and the naming of the Media Center.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. And Madam Clerk, if you would just confirm, I do not believe that we received any public comments via email this week. Is that the case?
Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comment
All right.
emails.
Thank you. Well, then that concludes this month's requests from the public. And we will now turn to our consent agenda. Is there a motion that the board approve the consent agenda items? Hang on here.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, got a motion from Ms. Byers Bailey, a second from Mr. Strain. Does anybody wish to pull any item for individual consideration before we vote on the consent agenda? Hearing none, all those in favor of the motion, please let it be known by a show of hands and say yes.
Yes.
Yes. Do we have any opposed? Okay, Madam Clerk, that our consent agenda is approved by unanimous vote of 9-0. Board members, we have 3 action items tonight, and the first is the renaming of Zebulon B. Vance High School. Before the board acts, I turn to the superintendent to introduce this item and make a recommendation to the board.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I wanted to unmute myself first. Thank you. Good evening, Madam Chair, board members, and our listening public. Before we get into my recommendation, I'd like to share some details about the process for renaming Vance High School. This past summer, following the murder of George Floyd, national and local demonstrations, and really a national conversation about monuments and names, the board asked staff to form a committee to explore renaming Vance High School. A committee was formed, which was made up of students, staff, parents, and alumni. They created goals and guided principles to govern their work. The committee had 4 subcommittees, and I want to recognize these subcommittees, the leadership of those subcommittees. We had the government and oversight, the community engagement, communications, and the historical research subcommittees. The overall committee held 3 public meetings. Each of those had about 50 participants. They included information on their website, and they publicized the process and encouraged participation through a variety of strategies, including on social media. It was a robust process, and there were 3 names that the community and students were asked to vote on. And they were Julius L. Chambers High School, Queen City High School, and University City High School. The top votes from the students were University City High School, Queen City High School, and followed by Julius L. Chambers High School. It's worth noting that the community supported Julius L. Chambers High School as their top choice, followed by University City High School and Queen City High School. Board members, I am extremely honored to recommend Julius L. Chambers High School as the best name for your consideration. And I do that not because it had the most overall votes, but because this is also an opportunity to recognize, honor, and pay reverence to a national leader in civil rights whose work began right here in Charlotte. And I understand that at-large board member Lenora Shipp and Mr. Chambers lived in the same neighborhood. I also don't want this moment to pass without reminding everyone in our community about the importance of knowing our history and sharing it with our students and children. I believe that it is our responsibility as parents, caregivers, community members, and educators to share history so that when opportunities like this arise, there is never a question. And what I would like to do now is add a bio, which is included online in board docs on Mr. Chambers. Would like that to be added to the record of this meeting. And with that, Madam Chair, I will turn to District 3 Board Member, Dr. Ruby Jones.
All right. And before we go to Dr. Jones, do any board members have any questions for the superintendent? All right. Dr. Jones, would you like to make the motion?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Madam Chair, I move to approve the renaming of Zebulon B. Vance High School to Julius L. Chambers High School as recommended by the superintendent. Additionally, for the sake of posterity, I request the biography of Mr. Chambers that has been provided to the board and posted on board docs for the public to read, to be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
All right. Thank you for that motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I think I heard that from Mr. Chambers' neighbor first, Lenora Shipp. So, Dr. Jones, I turn to you now to speak to your motion.
Okay, I move that we adopt Julius L. Chambers High School.
You
as
made the
recommended.
motion. If we just now, would you like to speak to it before we vote? Is there anything you would like to
okay.
add in commentary?
Oh, yes, as I asked, yes. And thank you for that. There was a French philosopher whose quote, "Noble deeds that are concealed are most esteemed." Were it not for Julius Chambers, we would not be where we are today as a school district. This is an honor of the highest level that I, as a contemporary of his time, have the privilege of having read this action item. I sincerely implore our young students, who many, I understand, have no knowledge of this man who was one of the greatest civil rights lawyers of our time, to know this giant of our history. He is the reason I, as a Black person coming from a totally segregated elementary through college experience, educational experience, was able to begin my career in teaching in a newly integrated Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. Black educators and white educators, Black students and white students together in the same space because of this man, Julius L. Chambers. Julius Chambers was pivotal in making all of this possible. And while we have taken steps backwards in school integration, we need to study our history to make better decisions in the future. So it is with an honor that I recommend the approval of Julius L. Chambers High School.
Thank you, Dr. Jones. I'm now going to turn to other board members and our student representative, Mr. Shul, for comment. Ms. Cheek, I see your hand, and then I'll go to Ms. Ship.
I'm going to support this. I've been in Mecklenburg County the end of the 1970s and well aware of all the amazing accomplishments and the importance to this community of Mr. Chambers. I will, though, Mr. Winston, Superintendent Winston, ask you to make sure that for future naming, there was some questions raised in public comment tonight about the process. I underwent a naming of my area that also had some similar concerns about a decade ago. And I want to make sure that we shore up our process and how we do go about naming and or renaming schools. So I want to make sure that this, our member from the public, that her comments were heard and taken to heart. And I would just ask you to lift that up to make sure that we're staying in the process. But I do absolutely support this decision.
Thank you, Ms. Ship.
Yes, I'm very honored that Julius L. Chambers is being named for Vance High School. Having grown up in the school system in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, you could say I was a child of the Swan versus Board of Education. That caused me to go from a segregated school. I started in Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools at University Park, an entirely Black elementary school under Elizabeth Randolph as the principal, and had an opportunity to then see desegregation because of the work of Julius Chambers. And living in a neighborhood where I grew up in the neighborhood with him being an attorney at that time, it was wonderful to see the work. And I know I'm a product of the importance of the desegregation ruling, integration of our schools, and being a graduate of West Charlotte during the time of a lot of change with integration. So I'm very pleased that our young people will get an opportunity to see what civil rights was all about and to experience a legacy, someone who made these things happen. So I'm very grateful to be here on this board to see this change happen. And again, what a great honor to have him named for Vance High School.
Thank you, Ms. Sawyer.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to support the naming of Julius Chambers High School, and my fervent hope is that our future decisions as a board will honor not just his name, but his legal rulings and legacy as a civil rights leader in fighting for school integration. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall?
I think it's worthy to note that while Mr. Chambers was such a giant in civil rights work throughout a really important period of our time locally and nationally, he was also a champion for education. He served as chancellor of North Carolina Central. So I think it's really fitting that an educational space like this new Chambers High School will be named for this giant, both in civil rights and education. So I think Chambers Chambers High School has a nice ring to it. So I'm excited to support this.
Mr. Shul?
Well, I don't want to reiterate what everyone else has said too much, but I cannot agree more that this is a fantastic step towards rewriting the narrative and giving students a place where they can grow up in the footsteps of people like Chambers instead of people like Vance. And I will say, to reiterate what Ms. Cheek said and some people during a public hearing, something I've also heard from a few students is that we could have a bit more transparency in the process of renaming. I think even the statement that the Superintendent Winston gave, if that was published on the website and we had clear identification of what those processes are for anyone who wanted to have them available, that could already be a good step.
Okay, Ms. Byers-Bailey?
Thank you. It's interesting for me to hear all the variety of things that Mr. Chambers did here in Charlotte while I was out of town, not living here, but I also have a connection with him. During the time he was involved with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, I was applied to attend law school, and he was instrumental in my receiving a stipend from the Legal Defense Fund while I was in law school to cover books and extra items that my scholarship did not cover. So he touched me personally, even though it wasn't here in Charlotte.
Wow. Anybody else? All right. I can't top what everybody else said. So I'm just, I too feel honored to be on the board to be able to vote on this positive change. It's a symbol. Symbols matter, and symbols have to be followed up with substantive action. And like Ms. Sawyer said, we have a lot of work to do to live up to Julius Chambers' legacy. Naming a high school for him, making his name and his legacy more visible to our young people and throughout our community is a good first step. And with that, Madam Clerk, would you please call the vote?
Board Member Rhonda G, how say you?
I vote yes.
Board Member Dr. Ruby Jones, how say you?
I vote yes.
Board Member Carol Sawyer, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Margaret Marshall, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Sean Strain, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Lenora Shipp, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Jennifer Delahara, how say you?
And Ms. Delahara had to leave the meeting early.
Board Vice Chair Thelma Byers-Bailey, how say you?
Yes.
Board Chair Elise Dashew, how say you?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote 8-0.
All right, thank you. All right, next, the second action item is the naming of the new K-8 Language Immersion Magnet School. Before the board acts on this, I'm going to turn to the superintendent to introduce this item and to make a recommendation to the board.
Thank you again, Madam Chair. We're excited, as you just mentioned, to bring forward a naming recommendation for another CMS facility. As a reminder, this building, which will house a new K-8 language immersion program and is located on the old Nations Ford Elementary site, will open for students in August of 2021. The school began the naming process right before school ended last year. They informed a committee, which was comprised of students, staff, and families. The committee members got feedback from their constituents, narrowed down the recommendations, and came up with a list of 3 names, which are the South Academy of International Languages, Queen City Language Academy, and Global Language Academy. They posted on an online survey for community members to rank their first, second, and third choices. In all, we had close to 500 people who participated in that survey process. So with that, Madam Chair, board members, my recommendation aligns with the #1 vote getter, which is South Academy of International Languages. I apologize. With that, Madam Chair, I will turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. I will now turn to our Board Vice Chair, Thelma Byers-Bailey, to make this motion.
All righty. Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve naming the K-8 Language Immersion Magnet School at the former Nations Ford Elementary site, the South Academy of International Languages, as recommended by the superintendent.
Okay, would you like to speak to this motion?
Madam Chair, you need a second on the motion.
I sure do. All right, we've got a motion from Ms. Byers-Bailey, a second from Ms. Sawyer. Now would you like to speak to the motion?
Yes. I have been a fan of this particular curriculum for a number of years. I'm excited that they finally have a home because they've been hanging out in Waddell High School for quite a while. But in that time, they have built a fantastic program that attracts students from all over the country. And I'm just thrilled that they finally have a home in the South County and on Nations Ford Road. And I'm glad that the community had input in this process.
All right, thank you. Any other comments? Ms. Shipp? You're muted.
I just want to comment, having been maybe one of the last administrators on that site and the Old Nations Ford site, I'm just grateful to see this new facility finally opening. I remember when the old site was torn down and we've been waiting for this new facility. So I'm excited to hear about it. Also, I had the Japanese Immersion Magnet Program when it was in the elementary building at Sedgefield. So I'm very happy to see this be named the South Academic of International Languages Academy. It is gonna be a wonderful facility. I'm very familiar with the site they're on now, E.E. Waddell. So this is exciting, and I'm happy to see this happening.
Anybody else? All right. Madam Clerk, would you please call for the vote?
Board Member Rhonda Cheek, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Ruby Jones, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Carol Sawyer, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Margaret Marshall, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Sean Strain, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Lenora Shipp, how say you?
Yes.
Board Vice Chair Thelma Byers-Bailey, how say you?
Yes.
Board Chair Elise Dashew, how say you?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by vote of 8-0.
All right. And the final action item tonight is naming the tennis courts at Independence High School. Before the board acts, I'm going to turn to the superintendent to introduce this item and make his recommendation to the board.
Thank you once again, Madam Chair. Tonight, I would like to recommend to the board that the tennis courts at Independence High School be named Spence Courts to commemorate the contribution of the Spences, and wanted to just share a little bit of information about them. This couple, their 15-year commitment to Independence High School has made the tennis program what it is today. The husband and wife couple has served Independence in a number of other capacities too. Diane is a retired math teacher from Independence, and Jan was a security associate, and both actually had really tireless and unwavering support for sharing their love of tennis with our students. And so tonight, I would like to add a letter of support from the school community at Independence High School to the record of this meeting. And with that, I will turn it back over to Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. So before we go to the motion, any questions? Okay, I'm going to turn to Board Member Sean Strain then to make this motion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move to approve naming the tennis courts at Independence High School Spence Courts in honor of coaches Diane and Jan Spence, as recommended by the superintendent. Additionally, I would ask that the letter of recommendation from Principal David LeGrand, dated June 8th, 2020, be included in the minutes of tonight's meeting.
I second that.
Okay, we've got a motion from Mr. Strain, a second from Ms. Cheek. Do we have any comments from any board members? Or I'm sorry, Mr. Strain, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, Mr. Winston went through the tremendous history and background here, the contribution that both of the Spences made to the Independence community and the high school is really fantastic. We had a speaker in public remarks earlier in terms of these sorts of contributions and being able to recognize them, if not for schools, certainly within facilities, and the Spences are tied to those tennis courts and the fantastic contribution. So I appreciate the recommendation, and I'm honored to put this forward.
All right, any debate, any commentary from any other board members? Okay, well, they are certainly beloved, and I'm glad to see them honored. Madam Clerk, would you please call for the vote?
Board Member Rhonda Cheek, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Dr. Ruby Jones, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Carol Sawyer, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Margaret Marshall, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Sean Strain, how say you?
Yes.
Board Member Lenora Shipp, how say you?
Yes.
Board Vice Chair Thelma Byers Bailey, how say you?
Yes.
Board Chair Elise Dashew, how say you?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote of 8-0.
All right, thank you very much. Well, this concludes our action items tonight. So we will now move on to reports and information items, beginning with a report on budget amendments for July and August of 2020. I turn to the superintendent for this report.
As presented, Madam Chair.
Okay, next we have a report on capital project ordinances for July and August of 2020. I turn to you, Mr. Superintendent, for this report.
Also as presented, Madam Chair.
Okay, and then we have a report on readiness metrics. I'm going to turn to you, Mr. Superintendent, for this report, followed by board member questions and answers.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For this particular report, I am going to invite Kathy Elling, our Chief School Performance Officer, to join us. I would say at the podium, but at the virtual podium to bring forward this report.
Good evening, board members. I'm going to share my screen if I may. So tonight I would like to both share where we currently are with relative numbers as readiness for in-person instruction, and also clarify a couple points that we perhaps weren't clear on this week, and that is my fault. So one, I want to direct the public to the this back to school dashboard, metrics dashboard, and if you come down here, I want board members and the public to know that we are tracking both by the week, which is what you see here, and what I will go over next, which is over a 14-day period. It is important to note that at the end of last week, it was referenced earlier that we had roughly over 1,000 students in our, and we had 0 students test positive for COVID-19 in that period. We do have roughly 19,000 employees, and we currently have 10 members of our staff last week who tested positive. This is a 7-day number that will be refreshed every Monday. It is not a 14-day number, and that was, I think, an error that was noted on the dashboard and the correction that was provided, and we apologize for that. We are doing our utmost as we are wrapping our arms around this complicated process of tracking to provide clarity and the utmost transparency in our data. And I want to share with you next the dashboard, the readiness dashboard, which should look familiar to you. And if you will remember that we are using this dashboard as a guideline for making decisions about readiness for in-person instruction. And I'm talking specifically next about readiness for in-person instruction for the group, which will be our K-5 students. We're assessing that readiness now in preparation for them to come back. Our county health metrics, as you note here, are stable compared to the last time that I shared them with you. We are looking at the number of schools with cases, and that has moved us into the yellow. And you'll note that is schools with at least 1 positive case within a 14-day period.
Kathy, I don't think that you're showing the dashboard right now. You're still at COVID-19 cases at a glance, I think.
Oh, thank you, sir. Gosh, thank you. My apologies. What happened?
And one other thing, while you're getting that set up, I would like to ask my colleagues if you could all mute yourselves, because we're getting some background noise. Thank you.
Okay, my apologies. Thank you, Mr. Strain, for letting me know. Is it visible now?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much.
Maybe you can go back to speaking on,
yeah.
You know, what we weren't able to visually see.
Yeah, I'll start at the top. So what I wanted to share, what I'm sharing with you are the county health metrics. As you know, we use the county health data, and we are tracking, as we were the last time I talked with you, with case rates between 10 and 100 per 100,000, and we are below 5% positivity rate. When we are looking at the number of schools with cases, we have moved to yellow, meaning that we do have more than 10 schools with at least 1 positive case within the 14-day period. Note, as I said previously, we have 0 students this previous week in that number, and we had 0 schools represented in the count designated as schools with at least 25 individuals in active quarantine. So this was our error in coding, and we had originally displayed that in yellow when in fact we have 0 students or 0 schools that have 25 members in quarantine in the past 14 days. Case count monitoring in schools. We have moved to yellow. We have 2 instances where we had more than 1 individual test positive in a particular location. We have no clusters at this time, and we have less than 15 individuals at one particular location that are quarantined. District metrics are holding steady. I want to highlight nurses because this is something of great importance. At this time, we are holding at 37 nurse vacancies. We have been able to offer 51 additional nurse extender positions. We call them nurse extenders because they are extending the services provided by Mecklenburg County Health Department nurses. And we have offered opportunities for work for 51, and they have been assigned to schools, and they are starting, in fact, this week. A group of them will be starting this week. School readiness, instructional staffing is holding steady. I want to address school facilities. I'm going to come back to that. Infection and PPE is holding steady, and training and safety measures are holding steady. I want to come back to school facilities. I want to be sure we have posted the school checklist for reopening and safety on this particular page, web page. I want to make sure that we all that we know that the questions, the process by which we designed this survey was to take a look at all the requirements the state had given us and the DHHS had given us. From that, we designed a readiness survey checklist for each, for comprehensive checklist for the district. And principals, learning community superintendents, staff from our equity superintendents, and other members of our team walked schools in order of in-person instruction to determine whether or not all the safety requirements were in place. And those things we've talked about before include safety signage, PPE, classroom setups. And I would highlight that we are continuing to set up for K-5 instruction. And as teachers come back next week, we will be finishing that. And included areas and requirements for social distancing and signage around that. So we have collected that information. Addition to that, as principals walked with schools, they were given an opportunity to highlight any particular concerns they had with the facility. Those were added on a spreadsheet and delivered to our operations team, who has been working diligently to address those concerns. And at this point, we are ready to open facilities for the next group. And I think that, Mr. Superintendent, that concludes my segment, and I would kick it back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Elling, for that. Madam Chair, I know it's customary to ask board members for any comments at this time, but if I could just interject for a moment, I wanted to lift up that regarding the metrics, as I think Ms. Elling has so noted, that we have spent much time, as we should, discussing the 36 CMS school facilities that do not have outside air capabilities. But I do want to make sure that we're doing so in the context of this school reopening compared to past school openings. So each year, as we get ready to return to schools, return our schools to operations, our maintenance and our operations staff encounter different challenges. And, you know, many a factor of the heat and the humidity that our region endures during the summer months. And in many ways, this year is no different, except our challenges are magnified in view of the continued effects of the COVID pandemic. The 36 schools in our care that we have talked about that have outside air limitations each year are impacted by more than other facilities by such issues as mold and mildew. Our maintenance staff routinely inspects and they mitigate such problems to help prepare us to return students and staff to our buildings. This year, those schools have received priority in a number of HVAC-related upgrades and maintenance. And those include upgrading the air filters, the filter systems from MERV 8 to MERV 10, air optimization upgrades. The schools with no outside air have been prioritized, with more than half complete at this time, and the others to be finished by the end of the fiscal year. We've also begun the process to procure what's called, and this is a tongue twister, needlepoint bipolar ionization technology. So the sites without outside air will receive priority. And we anticipate beginning the installation of these systems around the beginning of next year. In addition to those upgrades to improve issues that we experience in these facilities, even outside the lens of pandemic conditions, like all our schools in the district, these schools have been prepared as best we can to mitigate the risk associated with COVID. The challenges presented by COVID are not unique to these schools, yet we absolutely understand the extra attention that is necessary due to the virus, and we share those concerns. And so I can report that, or I will report that our schools are ready to welcome students and staff. And I can say that with confidence because since early August, we have had staff in all of our facilities. And we know we are not immune to the effects of COVID, but as our metrics indicate, our processes and procedures are working. And Ms. Elling also gave an update on the number of nursing vacancies. And I also wanted to build on that by indicating that we have just over 20 teacher vacancies. We have 16 bus driver vacancies, so 16 vacancies in transportation. And then we also have about 30 custodian vacancies. So I wanted to share that in addition to the nursing vacancies that Ms. Elling shared earlier. I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Chair.
I will now recognize any board members as well as Mr. Schul for questions. Ms. Sawyer?
Thank you. Ms. Elling, I have a couple questions on the dashboard. Would it be possible to, to just include the actual level of our county health metric for that week on our dashboard? Right now, it shows yellow or green or red, but it would be handy to say it's what % positive and the number of cases that week, just so you don't have to toggle back and forth. And also, we list staff cases. At some point, will we be tagging staff like we do students to facilities? What's the threshold for shifting to saying what facility those cases are located in?
Good question. Thank you, Ms. Sawyer. We will be expanding our reporting to include location of cases, and that might be a school location, and it might be a category to include like transportation and nutrition, and maybe central office staffing. We will be making that. I want to expand just briefly for a second because I don't want people to misunderstand. We have been reporting to the individual's location, and we were reporting through the county health department like we do with any communicable disease regarding who's potentially impacted and who's not impacted. So this is addition to that. This would be an outward facing reporting of actual school locations and facility locations. And I thank you for that answer or question.
Also, you mentioned nurse vacancies. Do all of our pre-K sites currently have a full-time nurse?
We currently have nurse coverage across all of our school locations that are currently open. And what I'm referencing is our preparation to expand a little bit further when we add all of our K-5 back And we will have nurse coverage inclusive of our 51 nurse extenders who will be working at schools.
So, but nurse coverage means full-time, or is that just?
Nurse coverage can mean full-time. It also can mean access to a nurse for a partial week, full week. It depends on how we can accommodate and make up for the 37 existing vacancies.
So with 37 vacancies, we don't have enough nurses to put a full-time nurse at every pre-K site?
I'm not sure that we don't. I'll be glad to get the specific site locations. I do know that with us not opening middle school and high school yet, we have additional nurses that are available to us who would normally be serving those schools. I know we have redeployed nursing to cover schools, but if there's a particular concern, I would be glad to address it.
I'd just, in general, like to know how many schools have a full-time nurse on site at all times, as opposed to coverage, which means a phone call or a couple days a week or whatever. Thank you. That's all.
You're welcome.
Ms. Shipp?
Yes, I think I'm going to start with talking a few minutes about the nurses too, because I was believing that with the pre-K, there are 53 schools maybe open with pre-K. So right now, there would not be even, is there a full-time nurse right now, even in those schools? Or are they sharing already with that number of schools?
I don't believe that we have any schools currently sharing that are serving our pre-K sites. I'm going to double check that.
Okay. And I'm interested in knowing, I think you made the comment, we're continuing to set up for K-5. So does that mean as we think about all of our K-5 coming back in a few weeks, that we're not saying we're ready yet today? We're still setting up for K-5, or are we set up now?
Well, let's talk principal to principal for a second. So we've got all of our K-5 teachers coming back on Monday. And I'm anticipating some classrooms are not set up by their classroom teacher yet. While they've had access to the building, we've encouraged staff to come in. There's plenty of time to get classrooms, desks in the right location in preparation for the November 2nd opening. So I'm saying that I would anticipate that we're going to have some more classroom furniture to get in the right location in classrooms. That would be the only aspect of readiness at this point that I would want to have our schools just double check again.
So what percentage of the buildings are ready? You said all the buildings, is it 80%, 85%, 90%? What percentage are our buildings ready to go?
So our school facilities are over 95% at this current threshold, which is our pre-Ks in place. So when we come back in 2 weeks, or at next week's opportunity with Chair, Vice Chair, we would report out again on the level of readiness for the next phase, which is all of K-5 students back.
Okay, so we've done it by the return of pre-K right now.
We've always proclaimed that we were assessing metrics against the current phase of opening so that we could be sure, and that's why we chose, we meaning you, the board chose the phase in opening to be sure that we were ready.
And I guess I was talking beyond that, and also the buildings. Each one of the buildings that are those that are not open yet, but will be opening. Where are we at with those buildings?
So I'm trying to answer your question. I'm not doing a very good job. So I'm not talking staffing when I say buildings are ready. I'm talking about knowing that all the classroom furniture is in the right place. And that is what we're doing for the check against this K-5 opening. You heard our metrics indicate that our facilities are ready to open for this next phase.
And Ms. Shipp, if I could just add to what Ms. Elling just shared, we're ready to receive all of our K-5 teachers when they return. As she mentioned, there is some work to do in terms of setting up and so forth. And then just to clarify, my comments earlier when I said that I'm confident that we are ready, that was specifically from a safety standpoint, that our facilities are safe. So I wanted to clarify as we were having this conversation. I didn't want that to be taken out of context, not by you, but just I wanted to clarify those comments.
Thank you.
Sure.
So now that we have had 10 staff members test positive, what is the protocol for contact tracing? And is there a way to analyze whether any of those positive cases came from interactions within the school?
Yes, good question, Mr. Schul. So the contact tracing procedure is just the same as it is for any suspected case or confirmed positive case. We received word, we meaning the district response team, received word from the principal or the actual individual, and they tell us they test positive. And we go through a protocol with them where we ask them to indicate who were they around, when were they positive, when did they test, when were they in the building, who were they around, and we make determinations of close contacts. The close contacts we then verify, and the protocol is pretty strict around that. If you were in a school building in proximity of 6 feet with or without a mask for more than 30 minutes of an individual who tests positive, then you potentially are quarantined. So we are tracking that and we're making note of that. Now, your second phase of part of your question is really, are we able to tell whether, I'm making an assessment of what you're saying, that are we able to tell whether the virus is coming into the school and or are we spreading the virus within the school? And we have had, in all cases, we believe based on the contract tracing we've done, the cases are contracted in the community as part of community spread, as a part of people going about their daily activities outside of the school building, not knowing that they potentially are carrying the virus and they come into the building.
Thank you. And then I had a question for the superintendent. You mentioned new systems being added to schools without outside air filtration. I understand that's a pretty complex process, but I just wanted to clarify if that was a new addition to what we heard last time about systems at those schools without outside air filtration, and what specifically they entail.
I believe, Mr. Schul, that we have shared, I'm thinking about a meeting, one of our previous meetings that was held in person at the Government Center. Ms. Stamper, our Deputy Superintendent of Operations, shared some of the strategies that we are undertaking to improve conditions, at some of our schools. And so I wanted to, I felt a need to sort of just share that again. I don't know that we got into a lot of detail about the needlepoint bipolar ionization technology. I just don't recall specifically if we got into a lot of detail about that, but I wanted to reiterate the steps that we're taking to upgrade HVAC at our schools. So I wanted to state that information.
Okay, thank you. That's all my questions.
Okay, Ms. Cheek.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Elling. Just one question. I know the comment was just made, oh, wow, there's 10 staff members positive. I think it's kind of possibly maybe important to make sure the public knows we had positive over the last couple months. It's not a new thing that we've seen, but can you reiterate, are all those 10 people in schools, or because we have people working in facilities and operations all over the district?
Yes, they represent the case number. If it says cases in schools, that is the number that you're seeing that would be relative to cases in schools. But I think in context, we are seeing positive cases in areas including transportation, including child nutrition. And I think that ties back to what Ms. Sawyer was asking too around being able to categorize that in a way that's clear about where the cases are happening, and we're working on that.
And are the cases that are positive now in schools that are open for students? Because we have schools open for staff right now.
We did have cases emerge in schools that had students, and we had in some of those cases 0 quarantines.
Okay. I think that's just key because we do have staff in almost all of our schools right now. And we've, had some not outbreaks. We've had some positive tests in schools where there have been no students yet.
We've had no outbreaks by definition of.
Correct. I don't want to say that, or clusters. I know, I don't want to say those words. Those we've had diagnosed cases.
We have had positive individual cases, yes.
Thank you.
If I could clarify one thing, I know we're sharing a lot of numbers, a lot of data points with board members and members of our public. I think earlier, Ms. Elling may have mentioned, as it relates to COVID, a close contact. Is anyone, or she was describing what a close contact is, and in addition to anyone who is within 6 feet of a person who may be infected, I think what Ms. Elling meant to say was for at least 15 minutes. Yeah. I think what I heard was 30 minutes, but I think it was meant to be at least 15 minutes.
Thank you, sir. You are absolutely correct. I appreciate you having being my backstop.
No, we're giving a lot of numbers out tonight, and I just wanted to clarify.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Marshall.
I have been looking at other districts and reports around COVID dashboards, folks that had started some in-person, whether it was 1 day a week or 2 days a week. And I've noticed, and even in other states, that they've had sort of kept the cumulative dashboard on their site. And it's a lot, but I think it does give some context. I think, of course, the most meaningful information is what's happening today, what's happening right now. So our most recent information should always be the first thing we see. But will that be kept, like that dashboard, be kept in a place that the public can get to that?
I'll let the superintendent respond.
Thank you, Ms. Ellie. So what I think that's a really good suggestion, Ms. Marshall. If you will allow staff to take all of the recommendations that we received from board members tonight, including yours, and we can noodle on those, because there are districts that do it both ways. But I think your point is well taken. So if we could take all of those back and then just follow back up with sure. What our go forward plan is.
Okay, that sounds great.
Okay, Mr. Strain.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Superintendent, a couple of questions with this report. There's been some discussion of the 10 staff members who have been diagnosed as positive COVID patients. The numbers within the general public in the county, if we apply those to our entire base of staff, 19,000 give or take, do you know how many we would expect given the general COVID disease prevalence in the county there would be? Are we running high or low given the disease prevalence within the county?
So I would need, Mr. Strain, thank you for asking that. I would need to take a look at all of the data together. I just don't have that information right in front of me. So if I could get back with you on what that would be, how we would fare sure. In comparison.
Sure, I think that's an important item to track as we continue to move back into the schools to identify whether we're running higher, lower, or roughly equal to that of the general population within the county. The second thing I wanted to cover was this notion of safe versus unsafe. We've certainly used the the term safe, I think in fact, I know that's why the dashboard was put together, to provide that sort of information as to the safety of our schools, our processes, our staff, our staffing, in terms of being able to return to the classroom. And so I know that there were some comments earlier this evening in the public remarks about a safe reentry for all. I'm confident that all of us are certainly looking forward to a safe reentry for all, for staff, for students. And so there was also a remark in that one set of comments about a forced return in unsafe conditions. And I just want to speak to that for a minute and sort of get your feedback. The purpose of the dashboard is to demonstrate to ourselves, our staff, and the public, in my opinion, that we actually are in a safe position in order to continue to return to classrooms where we know very well that the teaching and learning takes place best for the overwhelming majority of our students. And so if you don't mind, given the fact that this has been raised time and again, that we are forcing a reentry in unsafe conditions, given the fact that we have a dashboard now that is largely green with a few yellow areas, is it safe to say that it's actually safe to return? Is it accurate to say that it is safe to return to the classrooms as we proceed with the plan to do so?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Strain. I believe that at this particular point in time, we are safe. And I do think that as we continue to phase in students for in-person learning, that we as a community have a responsibility to make sure we do not let our guards down, so that we're continuing to do all of those necessary things, the 3 W's, so that we don't find ourselves in a position where that is not the case. And so I think that's important to note. And I say that because things change literally by the day, if not by the hour. And so conditions are constantly changing. And if we don't remain vigilant as a community, then we won't find ourselves in a position where our schools are safe for our students and staff to return.
Without question, and whilst the state has seen an uptick, certainly we continue to be in a low and stable, as Gibby Harris has stated that it is consistently over the last 2.5 months or so in terms of the community spread. So I appreciate that. My last question is around this notion of readiness, also an objective of the dashboard, to measure our readiness to re-enter for K-5. And so part of our conversation when we last reviewed this was, let's look and consider not only what is directly in front of us, which at this point is a re-entry for K-5. We've talked about we are both safe and short of some reconfiguration of furniture in classrooms, we are ready to enter for K-5. I would ask the same about 6-8, because we need to be looking not only at what is directly in front of us. The next phase is the re-entry for K-5, currently slotted for November 2nd, but what about 6-8? Have you had a chance to look at our readiness for 6-8 in those schools?
So what I would say about 6-8, Mr. Strain, that I know our staff is making significant progress on 6-8, but our immediate focus, and I can get you the details on what defines progress for 6-8. I don't have the specific numbers in front of me, but we are focusing in the immediate future on our K-5 students, since that is the next group to be phased in for in-person learning. I will also just indicate that on my visits when we return members of our EC students, as well as our pre-K students back for in-person learning, over the past couple of weeks. I think being able to bring students in a phased approach does allow us to be prepared and work on our readiness for the next group of students that are to enter the building. So I wanted to just note that's important piece of the readiness as well, learning from those who have come before you.
Yeah, recognizing that this next phase, when we bring in K-5 students, is really the only phase where that'll take place, where we're bringing K-5 students into a building where we've already opened for pre-K. I say that also our K-8s would be then an additional phase where we've got preschool, K-5, and then 6-8, right? But for middle schools, they're highly unlikely, as we've discussed, to learn a whole lot from the K-5 entry that they couldn't learn today, right? Because it's the experience of the staff in the school, bedding down the processes, getting to the point where it's muscle memory, where the real value is, right? And so from that perspective, we're seeing it in the pre-K 8s in terms of that phased entry, but our K-5s, our middle schools and high schools don't have that advantage because there's nobody coming to a school in phases. The last piece I would leave you with as you look into the readiness for 6-8, and I think it's important, again, not only to look at the next phase directly in front of us, but the following one is a question of the phasing with the 3-week lag. And I'd like some further justification as to the 3-week lag and how that is necessary, knowing full well that every one of the 13 days, school days between now and when we enter elementary schools on the 2nd of November makes a difference. Every one of the days between when K-5 enters and 6-8 enters makes a difference for our 6-8 students. So what I'd ask is to look at the benefits and the risks, right? The cost and benefit associated with bringing 6-8 back earlier and accelerating that schedule, because what we've just discussed here is there is value and learning. The question is whether there's justification for continuing to keep kids out of the classrooms for that additional 2 weeks and looking at a 1-week lag versus a 3-week lag. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Anybody else? Ms. Shipp, want to go back to you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add what you were saying, Mr. Strait. Do we not have our extension kids in those middle schools and high schools? So aren't some of those schools open and we're getting a chance to see what's going on in those facilities? Is that not the case?
That's correct, Ms. Shipp.
So we do, as Mr. Strait was saying, are we learning from or seeing what those facilities look like and what's going on in those buildings in terms of all of this, in terms of the moving parts? So I'm just asking because we're not totally not putting kids in those facilities when you think about middle school and high school that had those extension programs. Is that correct? He's saying yes.
Yeah, well, Ms. Shipp, I think that yes, I think that's true, and certainly Ms. Elling said that, and Mr. Winston said that, but that would even further the point that the lessons have been learned. Why are we waiting to put the rest of the students in the school? So where we've got EC students, you're right, those lessons have already been learned. What's the benefit associated with continuing to wait to put the 6-8 students, the general ed students, back into that school?
I think the question would then be the rest of the facilities. I think we're talking about if we're doing it in phases in terms of readiness for the facilities.
Yep.
I think is the question. Also, I wanted to ask about, and this, I don't know where this is, but I have had some concerns and of course from staff about testing. And I have talked to some county commissioners about how we can set up sites for teachers who want to get tested before they come back into the building. I know that's not an end all be all, but I think it would be good for them to know. I've had a test before I stepped back into the building with children. So at least we have that level of readiness. Where am I in terms of whether I'm asymptomatic, I'm going to bring something in, and especially with staff, I think that would be good for us to be able to do that. And I think I'm hearing that the county is, people are willing to work with us to get that done. So, and I had a staff member, some people to write me asking, are we going to do it? That would be a way for the teachers to feel like they're safe, we're concerned, and we're doing that, because teachers do want to come back, and we know they want to come back. And this might be a way to also help them feel that as they enter back into the buildings.
Ms. Shipp, I'll take that, Ms. Elling. Ms. Shipp, we absolutely agree with you. We could not agree with you more. And we are in conversations with our partners at the health department to do exactly what you just described. There are some additional details to be worked out, and our plan is to share with the board sometime later this week before we announce what our plans are publicly, certainly to our staff first. But we wanted to firm up those details and then share with the board before we begin sharing it with our staff, this opportunity.
Thank you, because I was getting emails from teachers, and that has been an ongoing question. I really wanted them to realize that is something we're working on, or something that has been discussed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes, ma'am. We just wanted to firm things up before we let the cat out of the bag.
Well, thank you.
Anybody else? Ms. Byers-Bailey, Dr. Jones, any questions? Okay. I'm going to ask for, I want to go back to Ms. Elling, if we could go back to the COVID-19 cases at a glance for this week. I just want to go through that chart one more time and make it as clear as possible for all of us and for our public. I think week after week, as we continue to look at it, it's going to make sense to all of us. But right now, I just think I'd like to walk through it one more time if we could. So when that's on the screen.
So yes, ma'am, I'm going to show you. So I want people to know where they can find it.
Okay, great.
So here we are at the home page.
Great.
And these tiles are here, and they're going to click right here, metrics dashboard.
Wonderful.
And it's going to come up with this page, and it will always be here.
Okay, great. Now, this will be updated.
This will be updated on Monday.
On Mondays.
And this number on Monday of next week will reflect the number of in-person students, which will be inclusive of our pre-K.
So that will be a higher number.
That'll be a higher number. This number will be what it is for that period, and it will reflect the number of students that are tested positive this week.
Okay, so if we're looking at this as of Friday, we had 1,073 students going to school in person.
Mm-hmm.
In that week, we had 0 students testing positive.
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Now, the week before, we had 1 student who tested positive, right?
Mm-hmm.
But last week, we had 0 students who tested positive.
That is correct.
Assuming the 1 student is still recovering.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the number of how many new cases have been reported.
That is correct.
Okay.
And
then the
this,
next line, that's
Mhm.
all of our employees, regardless of, that's including central office staff, that's including employees working remotely, employees in the school building, teachers, teacher assistants, every job category, right?
That's correct.
And then the current number of COVID-19 positive staff members, clarify that. Is that out of all of our employees, or is that only employees based in a school? What?
That would correspond to the category you see above, which is total number of employees. So this would represent 10 employees across all of our employee categories.
So it could be an
Subset,
attorney.
it represents a
bus driver,
subset.
It could be a teacher.
Could be a teacher, could be a bus driver, could be an academic facilitator. It represents a subset, a number of this larger group.
Okay. Okay. And now I'm going to ask you one more question that caused some confusion, because there was a, can you talk about the mistake with the 2 weeks and the 1 week and how?
Yes, and okay.
It's 10
So-
now, and earlier it was 18.
Yes, and so our team's been working very hard, but we're not perfect. And so what we realized, unfortunately, after it hit the public view, is that the number that was reflected there really was a 2-week number. And we are reflecting data on this particular aspect in a 1-week number. So it's not like we misrepresented the number in the week. We made a mistake in terms of reflecting it over the 2-week period versus the 1-week period. This particular at a glance will always represent 1 week's time.
Okay. So that's out of all of our employees, no matter their job category, in that past week, the week of October 3rd through October 9th, there were 10 new cases of COVID-19.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And we might have to beat this to death. So, next month in 2 weeks, when you report to us again, I might even ask for this sort of step by step until we
Not a
all,
problem.
as a public, really get it down. But thank you so much.
Glad to
Thank you for
help.
bearing with me on that.
Yeah, glad to help.
Okay. Well, if there are no more questions, I just, will thank you all for continuing to work through this, and look forward to hopefully good, safe, face-to-face interactions in the next week, as we all continue to do our best with remote learning as well. And I am still looking forward to the day when we keep bringing these case numbers down and this infection rate down in Mecklenburg County and in North Carolina and in the United States. So thank you all for wearing the mask. Wear it over your mouth and your nose. And my gosh, we just have got to get these numbers down. This is really getting old. Okay. Let's move on to the next report, Mr. Superintendent. We have a report on the CMS Foundation, getting ready for an annual report from them and hearing about all of their good work in our community.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Madam Chair. So at this time, and I want to thank Ms. Ellen again for her report. At this time, I want to ask Sonia Gant to come forward and give us the report on the CMS Foundation. Sonia is our executive director, or is the executive director of the CMS Foundation. And I believe it is approaching 5 years, almost 5 years. My math may be a little bit off, but approximately 5 years since one of my predecessors reinvigorated the CMS Foundation and tapped Ms. Gant to lead that effort. And she and her team, her mighty team of 3, have done an outstanding job. And so wanted to give the board, as well as members of our listening public, an opportunity to hear some of the great work that has been done under Ms. Gant's leadership.
Superintendent Winston, I appreciate that. And your math is correct, off by just a few months. It'll be 5 years in December, but I'm excited to be here. And Madam Chair and board members, I look forward to sharing with you the work that our team has done. So I'm going to begin sharing my screen. See if we can get this up for you. And you should be seeing it right now. Take you there. Okay, so just a little bit about us. We like to refer to ourselves as the official nonprofit fundraising partner for Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools. And our work is really all about raising money to support the district's highest strategic priorities. We firmly believe that when you harness the power of private investments in education, you can do a couple of things. First of all, you can do something new. That's what we mean when we talk about seeding innovative ideas. And you can also help to expand programs to accelerate system-wide transformation. We always like to share with our community partners that no one else does this work in Mecklenburg County. We do play a unique role serving as the trusted bridge that connects donors to this district's most critical work. And we help ensure that investments in our school system have a meaningful, sustainable impact on both students and educators. So people often ask me, what does that mean, Sonia? What is it that your team does every single day? We're always working to identify strategic, high-impact opportunities for private support. We do the work of raising the money and connecting those private resources to the district. We steward investments with integrity, and we maintain open communication with donors. And I want to stop there just to highlight that we know our educators have extremely busy jobs. We see it as our job to make sure that the donors who've invested in our work know what's happening. So that's our work, to build relationships outside the school district. We also fund teacher-led projects through our teacher innovation grants. We work to facilitate collaboration between educators and the community. We also do the work of managing restricted and donor-directed funds that support specific schools or oftentimes a specific department. And we serve as a 501c3 pass-through for CMS schools and departments who are seeking grants or receiving donations. There are quite a number of opportunities within the school district for support. So we have to have a process because, as the superintendent indicated, we do have a small staff. And so we have to be very strategic about our fundraising priorities. And I wanted to give you a look at the process that we use to determine the work that we do. First of all, you'll see on your left-hand side that we take a moment to really gather information from several different sources, not just the strategic plan, but we talk to CMS leaders, our very own insights from working within the school district. We take a look at our current priorities, and then we do take a moment to really look at the trends that are happening both locally and also nationally. Once we've done all that, we come up with a slate, and then we assess the potential areas of support in 4 ways. Number one, we want to make sure it's aligned with CMS's strategic goals. We want to make sure it's aligned with our foundation approach, which is to seed something new or to help expand something that could lead to system-wide transformation. We think it's important to be able to track and measure the impact of what we do. And then, as I mentioned, we always look at the potential for donor funding. And after we assess the slate in that way, we come up with our fundraising priorities. I wanted to give you a look at the 2 priorities we are currently working on. The first one is the CMS teaching residency. And this provides an accelerated, affordable pathway for passionate professionals to become licensed classroom teachers in CMS. This is a district-operated program, and it focuses on developing effective teachers to support the areas of highest need in our school system. I think it's important for you to know that this program is licensed by the state as an educator preparation program. And it includes a year of rigorous training, personalized support, hands-on experience, and the residents are able to build new skills while complementing or completing, I should say, the requirements for obtaining a North Carolina teaching license. The program has 3 goals. We want to increase the number of effective, high-quality teachers, diversify our local teaching force, and address gaps in the areas of highest need. I wanted to give you just a look at the impact of this program in its 3 years of existence. And you can see there, I have an updated number for you. The third cohort, which they are beginning this school year, 116 of them have now been hired. So the total number of teachers that this program has brought to the district, if my math is correct, would be 252 now. I'm going to show you a short video that showcases the first class of the CMS teaching residency. I do want to let you know it was taken at the end of their year, which is in 2019. So of course that was prior to COVID, which is why you will see no mask in this video. So please meet some members of the first class of the CMS teaching residency.
There are no diplomas, no caps and gowns, but this is sort of like a graduation. A class picture of 37 Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools teachers who just finished their first year in the classroom.
You all are amazing. Let's give each other a round of applause.
I think I've always been a teacher at heart, and I think I was trying to run from it. And I think that I finally found what I'm meant to do.
It's been wonderful. It's been surprising. It's been intense. It's been full of a lot of pressure, but it's also been extremely rewarding.
Initially, they all had this, that science is hard. Science is for the smart people. I said, who told you that? Anybody can learn, and you have to just have an interest.
3 members of the first class of the CMS teaching residency. A pathway to the classroom for those who want to bring their passion for children and the skills they learned in other professions into schools.
As we're going through our session today, we're going to answer those questions.
But before they can get there, they have to pass state tests, spend weeks shadowing veteran educators during summer school, and learn as much as they can about working with students.
So they give you certain scenarios, they give you techniques, they give you certain strategies to use. And if that one doesn't work, they give you another strategy to use, because every classroom is going to be different.
When I say go, you're going to close your books.
Support continues throughout their first year in school with group meetings and coaching sessions. The goal of CMS teaching residency is to support a new pipeline of educators. That's critical for Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. The number of college graduates choosing teaching as a profession is dwindling. Since 2010, undergraduate enrollment in education programs is down 43% in the UNC system.
I just want you to see the bigger impact in that we're going to be able to grow more teachers and produce more teachers for classrooms in need because of the quality work that you all have done.
4 teachers in this group earned the state designation of highly qualified because of their work in their first year in the classroom.
So super proud, Ms. Poonam.
Poonam had the highest score in the class. She enjoys sharing her love of science with 5th graders, but it is certainly not easier than her former profession.
I mean, taking all those learning needs and then breaking it down and then seeing, oh, they didn't understand this after all that you did. And if I was a biomedical engineer, I wouldn't have to work as hard as I am right now.
But she doesn't mind, and neither do the others when they see the difference they are making in schools.
You might not remember the quadratic formula, but you remember the skills I taught you on how to think critically, how to kind of dissect your problems, and maybe make better decisions, because I'm teaching you how to reason on the math. It's not just about the skill.
And I have some students in my class who in the beginning of the year wouldn't raise their hand, wouldn't want to talk. Now they're raising their hand, jumping out of their seat, ready to answer. They might not always get the answer correct, but they're willing to participate, and you see them growing and becoming better students and better people on top of that. And to me, it's amazing.
So my apologies. I understand that the video did not play completely for you, but I will be happy to share it. And please forgive me, I probably need technical support here. So I hope now you can see my screen. The teaching residents are actually just exceptional, and I invite anyone who would like to see that video to log on to our website. But I do want to tell you a little bit more about how the foundation is supporting the program. In 2019, we established a 3-year fundraising goal of $700,000, and to date, the foundation has raised nearly $600,000 for this initiative. I'm being told
I just wanted to interrupt for 1 second, just so you know what we're seeing. We're still seeing where the video froze.
Okay.
So if you have more slides that you need us to see, I don't know if you need to unshare and reshare.
Yep, good point. So let me go back in and see if we can get you there. I just want to say, I know that I spent several years working in TV, but just remember I was not on the technical side. Can you all now see CMS Teaching Residency Foundation support?
Yes.
Beautiful. Okay, that's where I wanted you to be. So I just am giving you a look at some of the areas where we provide support. First of all, with tuition assistance. This is like being part of a college program. We also support with their EdTPA fees. So first-year teachers have to submit EdTPA to the state, and that costs about $300. So we do help support that. And also retention incentives. You might have noticed that one of the goals of the program is to diversify the teaching corps in CMS. And we have highlighted support for Hispanic and Latino residents, because while more than a quarter of CMS students identify as Hispanic or Latino, we only have 2% of our teaching force that identifies that way. And we also currently support one program staff role. Let's see, my screen seems to have frozen here. There we go. So our next priority, the teaching residency, is priority 1. Our next one is the CMS COVID-19 Relief Fund. And we launched this in March of 2020 to help.
Ms. Gant, we're still seeing the foundation support screen.
Are you? What do you see now? Do you see the COVID Relief Fund?
Maybe, is this something that Ms. Kelly can share?
I tell you what, let me come back out and see if I can go into what do you all see now?
Now we see COVID Relief Fund.
Okay, perfect. Let's hope that this will allow us to keep going. As soon as we launched the CMS COVID-19 Relief Fund, it became very clear that while CMS had laptops to send home with students to support remote learning, there was going to be additional technology needs that had to be addressed. I think all of us are very clear that this pandemic has really exacerbated the impact of the connectivity gap. So while educators used to often talk about the homework gap, and that is knowing that they made assignments that students really needed to have access to the internet to complete. When instruction is being delivered remotely, that really amplifies the connectivity gap. So in the immediate response to school closures in March, we were able to find 6,000 mobile hotspots with 6 months of internet access to provide to students. And we want to say a big thank you to the 3 organizations that really helped to make that happen very quickly. The David Tepper Charitable Foundation, the John M. Belk Endowment, and the David Belk Cannon Foundation. As we moved into the summer and it became very clear that we were going to be continuing with remote learning, we knew we needed to initiate a broader fundraising initiative to close the connectivity gap. And that's when we launched Connect for Tech. And once again, I am having, okay, there we go. You should now see, do you see the fundraising goal?
Nope, it's still on the COVID relief.
Okay, so it looks like it's going page by page. And let me see. And now do you see almost the beginning of the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so let me see if I can skip forward for you.
It almost looks like a memory issue or a RAM or something, not to
I
get
think
too
you're
tech
right.
support-ish.
Yep. So let me take you full screen. Let's see. Do you see the fundraising goal?
No. We just see the first page.
Ms. Gant, if you'd like, I can switch to my screen.
That would be wonderful. Thank you very much. And if you can go to the fundraising goal page, Nicole, that would be wonderful.
Okay, just stop your screen share and it'll allow me to do mine.
Okay.
Thank you.
I have stopped. Or I'm trying to stop as I'm pushing it. There
you go.
Okay. So while Nicole is getting that up, I will let you know that we set a $3.2 million fundraising goal at the beginning of the year when we realized that the hotspots that we had left over from the spring were not going to be adequate in order to be able to meet the supply. CMS came forward after we worked with the strategy team to determine how many might be needed for this school year. And we came up with an estimated 16,000. CMS used state coronavirus relief funds that they could use to purchase devices, but not monthly service. And that they made an investment of nearly $1 million. So then our work was about raising $3.2 million to provide internet service to those devices. So I often explain it to people in this way. It's almost as if CMS bought the phone for the children, and then we are paying the monthly bill to provide the service. And many of you have seen our effort. We have asked the community to support this for an investment of $200. You can provide 12 months of internet access to a student. So I'm excited to share with you. Before we move forward, I want you to notice that bottom asterisk. It's very small, but I'll read it to you. The estimate of 16,000 does include the replacement of the initial 6,000 devices we put into the district. I think it's very important to remember that the ones we were able to get in the spring only had 6 months of service. So here's the page I'm excited to share with you tonight. We have raised from private donors more than $2 million. The city of Charlotte, you may recall, council members very generously voted to allot $1 million for our COVID relief fund. But we know we won't be able to bill for $1 million before December. And the city was contributing CARES Act funding. So we will put $500,000 toward internet connectivity, but the city has generously agreed to also provide, because they were going to give us $1 million, that they will provide $500,000 to support the purchase of iPads for our pre-K students. So we're very grateful for the support from the city. And then this was a big surprise to us. And if we could go back, Ms. Kelly, the big surprise for us is that there was new support that is being provided by the state of North Carolina in the form of 4,000 hotspots with 12 months of service. That support from the state meant that we were able to reduce our fundraising target by almost 800,000. So with donations received to date, that new support from the state, I am proud to tell you that the foundation has exceeded its initial fundraising goal, and any additional donations received will continue to support student connectivity needs in CMS. Now, I wanted to give you a look at the hotspot acquisitions and our distribution to date, and I want to say a huge thank you to CMS's technology team because they've been working overtime to really make this project go. The school district placed an initial order of 9,000 to meet the needs of families who indicated they needed support at the start of the year. And then we have placed now a second order for 500 because we want to be sure to always have devices on hand when families request. Nearly 8,300 have been distributed to schools since September 14th, and schools are actively engaging families to continue assessing where there may be connectivity gaps and to request hotspots as needed. The CMS Foundation will begin paying monthly hotspot service charges this month, and additional hotspots, we will order them in batches on kind of a rolling basis to make sure we're efficiently using funds. Those new state-provided hotspots will be distributed before we order any additional ones in order to maximize resources. So I hope you can appreciate that a great deal of work has been going on. And again, I have to say thank you to the technology team. If we can move forward now. I mentioned to you that part of our work, in addition to our fundraising priorities, is to manage restricted and donor-directed funds. And we have a total of about 13 of these. The assets are close to $1 million. And I just wanted to highlight one that's been particularly busy since the pandemic started. That is our McKinney-Vento Fund, which provides support for CMS students who are experiencing homelessness. We want to thank BB&T. They are now Truist at the time, but they wanted to support the work of our social workers. And so as social workers identify needs, we do the work of making sure the distributions are made. And we can move to the next slide now. Our pass-through support for schools and departments. As I mentioned, we are a nonprofit, and we do want to make sure that every school in our school district is able to take advantage of businesses who want to support them, but sometimes require a 501c3 to make a gift. So during the 2019-20 school year, we passed through more than $550,000 directly to schools or departments. And the total amount of pass-through funds since the foundation's relaunch in 2016 is $1.2 million. I hope you can appreciate for a school that does not have a PTA, this is really very helpful to them to be able to have individuals or businesses give directly to them. We can move to the next slide now. I want to say a big thank you to the CMS Foundation Board of Directors. And there's something very important I want you to know about this group, and that is that the majority of them either have students in schools currently, have students who their children were alums, or they themselves are graduates of CMS. And so they come to this work with a very dedicated passion, and I'm tremendously grateful to them. And I also want to pause here and just say, I want to call the names of my staff, Ashlyn James, who serves as our foundation manager, and Debbie Daniels, who's our senior administrative assistant. I could not have a more dedicated pair working with me along with this board to make everything happen. And as I close out on the last slide, I want to say thank you to all of the board members because we couldn't do this work without you. You provide administrative support, office space, materials, technology, and I'm just very, very grateful for the support because I think when we bring it all together, we can achieve this vision that we have of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Schools as a national leader in public education, where teaching is an iconic profession. And to me, that means we are celebrating our educators, and we all want to make sure that opportunity abounds for every child. So I thank you so much. I apologize for the technical problems. I promise I did practice this, and somehow it never quite works the way you practiced it. But I pause now and am open to questions and excited to share with you.
It's some combination of Zoom, Facebook, nighttime, you know.
Yes, yes, all of that.
Mercury's in retrograde. Okay. Thank you for your powerful work. I will now turn to any board members for questions or comments. Ms. Shipp.
I just want to say thank you for all of the work. This is so important, the CMS Foundation. Without it, where would we be at this particular time in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, where this is so just impactful, so really, really needed. So thank you for the work and the work of your team. And we're just so pleased with this and what you do, not just with the COVID, but even with the teacher residency and all the ways you're supporting what makes a difference for our students and our teachers. So I just want to say thank you for the work. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I want to say thank you to our community. I mean, there were more than 1,900 individuals, businesses that contributed to really make sure that our teachers and school leaders have the resources they need to make sure children are connected this year, which is extremely important.
Ms. Byers-Bailey.
Thank you. Sonia, I really want to say thank you, add my voice to the thank yous, and as well as the donors. I know during the summer and when we opened up in the fall, the community kept hearing, we don't have this, we don't have that. And because you and your staff are there, the community was able to meet those needs. And I'm just overwhelmed with gratitude.
Thank you. I am too tonight. I really am.
Ms. Sawyer.
I just want to add my thanks to the support of the foundation but mostly to the community members, large and small, and shout out to the teachers who organized a grassroots campaign printing t-shirts to support the foundation and student hotspots. Our teachers, I think, raised more than $7,000 in t-shirts.
They certainly did. Those t-shirts said virtually unstoppable, which I thought was incredible. I'll just take a moment to share. We had a physical therapy office that offered donation-only yoga classes. We had a boutique in South End contributing the sale of some of their purchases. This was truly a community effort to come together to support our students.
Ms. Marshall.
Thank you. I've got just a couple questions. And again, just to echo what everybody else has said, this has just been an amazing response, and it's just been really heartening. And it's wonderful that our city partners came and joined with us. I think that's really, really special. And then our state contribution, which was unexpected, which was anything like that is great too. We don't have those in hand right now, correct?
That is correct, but my understanding is that they will be on the way. So we've been assured, and trust me, without that assurance, I wouldn't have come forward to declare that we've made it to the end, but we have been assured that they will be on the way.
Well, and it's out there, so now we can hold them accountable too. Today, I received a list of students that aren't connected yet from a trusted community partner. And so I passed that on because I've told this partner, we've got the devices, and we're constantly finding that students aren't connected, or there's been something missing in communication where they didn't know they had this opportunity. So again, making sure that our principals and our teachers understand where connectivity issues are so we can address those types of things. So that's already been handed off. You may hear something about this, but I'm just want to let you know, and just let the community know, we're still finding things out. I also think it's interesting in working with this, I found out that am I correct about this? Some of those early hotspots that we gave out in the spring, they may not have had they weren't at a high speed or unlimited data. So there've been issues with how they have responded to our students' needs. And now this next batch is much more user-friendly. We don't seem to have the connectivity problems. That's the case?
That is the case. And I want to thank you for giving me an opportunity to just reiterate to folks that it is important. If a family has a need, all they have to do is reach to their school, and the turnaround time for getting a device is extremely quick. And I mean, within a day. I will share just briefly, when I say that there's ongoing assessment, that's because we're all learning. And I think there are a lot of parents who know that their phone can be a hotspot, who think that have been trying to connect their students' computer with a phone. What we know is that while a phone will allow you to search the internet, it is really not adequate for effective video conferencing for hours of the
Okay.
back and forth that we want our students to do. And you are correct that through another program in the district, sometimes that's why we're really excited about the state devices that are coming, depending on where towers are located and which service provider, sometimes the devices can be challenging. So having several different types in the district, we hope will be helpful for those areas where maybe the coverage has not worked.
Okay. Okay, great. And just one more quick thing. I want to say thanks to the folks at Ardrey Kell. I heard they raised a significant amount of money to outfit Starmount Elementary and Quail Hollow students with hotspots. So I want to thank you guys down there for looking out for your neighbors, and appreciate that.
That's exactly right. They are one of several PTAs that took it upon themselves either to raise funds for the gap at their school or to take a look at what was needed at a neighboring school.
Perfect.
And so I just appreciate all of them coming together and really leveraging the buying power that CMS has. I think people were a little concerned. Everybody wants to take care of their school, but this was a really perfect example of how they were willing to come together to achieve the overall goal.
Well, thank you for all your leadership in this. Appreciate it.
Anybody else? So Ms. Gant, I just want to thank you for your strategic approach over the past 5 years of getting the CMS Foundation off the ground. We are so, I don't know if we can even acknowledge how lucky we are as a district to have a foundation that is dedicated to working closely with the district, aligning philanthropic support with our strategic needs as defined in our strategic plan, as lifted up by our educators. It is a game changer. And you know, and there's a lot of good things happening in the district that I think we can attribute directly to your work. We've talked a lot tonight about the connectivity issues, which rightly is at the forefront of everyone's attention, but I don't want to forget all the other initiatives that you spoke to, and especially the teaching residency program. We know how much work we have to do to increase the number of Black and Brown teachers in our district. We know that that makes a big difference. Statistically, if a Black and Brown student has a teacher who looks like them, they are more likely to succeed in school and in life. And the teaching residency is one way that we are succeeding in our goal to increase those numbers in our district. So thank you for that. I look forward to continued progress on that front. And then I also want to, several of us have mentioned it, but I really want to highlight how amazing it was for the City Council to dedicate $1 million worth of their COVID relief funds to address the needs of students in our schools. They didn't have to do that. We see a lot of dysfunction in our country right now, where we see different governmental agencies that are not necessarily working together, or saying, you know, that's not my job, that's their job, that's their fault, that's not my fault. And for them to step forward and recognize that they could do something powerful for the children of their constituents that benefits us all as a community was visionary and refreshing, and gave me hope, and something that I want to see more of in Charlotte, in Mecklenburg County, and in America. So I will just finish with that. I just want to shine a light on that and thank our colleagues over at the City Council.
I am extremely grateful to all of them, as well as the city manager and his staff. They've been wonderful. And it's my honor to be here. I think most of you know I'm a CMS graduate. I was an East Meck Eagle. And so it's truly, I have 2 children who graduated from CMS. So I'm delighted to be in this role and happy to be working with Ashlyn and Debbie to do the work. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Superintendent, I am now going to turn to you for your report, which I know will also include a personnel announcement that we typically mention at the beginning of the meeting, but we're going to talk about this evening at this point in the meeting instead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I truly appreciate that. It is an honor and a privilege to announce this evening our new executive director of our Title I program services, Allison Whitaker, who is not a stranger to Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. So we stayed internal with this particular hire. Ms. Whitaker is currently serving as the director of Title I. And she has served in that capacity since 2015, so for about 5 years now. But prior to that, she has experience outside of the district, working for the Department of Public Instruction, as well as Durham Public Schools in a number of different roles. She also served in Chapel Hill, Carrboro City Schools, and she began her teaching career about 25 years ago in Catawba County Schools. And so I am honored to announce Ms. Whitaker as the new Executive Director of Title I Program Services. And I realize, Madam Chair, that we typically will ask our personnel appointments to give a few brief remarks, but I completely understand if Ms. Whitaker is no longer with us, we will make it up to her in another way. But I did want to share that information.
Mr. Superintendent, she is with us.
She is with us. Okay, so I don't have to make it up.
Shout out to Ms. Whitaker.
It was going to be lunch on me, and I still may do that, Ms. Whitaker.
That sounds great.
If you would, the floor is yours.
Well, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and distinguished board members, as well as Mr. Superintendent, thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking forward to supporting CMS students in this capacity and continue working with my colleagues, Tanisha Manus, she's a Title I director, and Dr. Fanish Shaw, Director of Family and Community Engagement, and the entire wonderful Title I team. And I have a couple of supporters here I'd like to just pull in really quick to wave, and that would be Marcela Fernandez, who works in workforce management as a specialist, and Carol Rod as principal at Collinswood. If they could join me really quick and say hello, and thank you so much for letting me speak. Bye-bye.
Well, thank you again, Ms. Whitaker. Thank you for your patience, and thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to share that at this particular point in the meeting.
Thank you.
And with that, I am going to, I have a couple of items that I wanted to share this evening as part of my superintendent's report. Earlier, we talked about facility readiness, and I am still beaming as a result of my visits yesterday to several of our schools that welcomed our pre-K students back for in-person learning. These are the youngest of our students to transition to in-person instruction, and there are approximately 1,500 pre-K students who came to school yesterday for the very first time. And I saw the excitement on their faces, not only their faces, but on the faces of our staff and our administrators who were beaming with joy to have them back in our buildings. And I spoke also with teachers who are already providing instruction and guidance to our students. Those were some great visits. And I was also filled with hope that soon we will bring back another group of students as part of our phased return. As I state this, I do want to reiterate, because I don't think we can say this enough. I want to reiterate and urge all members of the public to join our staff in remaining focused on what we must do to help control COVID as much as possible. And so to do that, we have to do our part in keeping our faces covered, our above our nose, wash our hands frequently, and keep our social distance so that our communities do not become a source of virus spread that adds cases in our schools that we could otherwise avoid. I want to take this opportunity to remind our families that the lottery for reserving a spot for your students in our after-school enrichment and before-school enrichment programs is taking place this week. So families have until 11:59 this Friday, October the 16th, to complete the application process in the lottery. Information about that lottery is on the CMS website and may be provided in greater detail by contacting your students' schools. Families of K-5 students and students in grades K through 6 who wish to reserve an ACEP or BCEP spot for their students must take action this week. The programs begin with our K-5 students coming back to school November 2nd, and students may attend on the days their group attends school on the fully remote day, Wednesday. Programs begin for students in grades 6 through 8 when those students return later in November, but the lottery for spaces in those programs is also this week. So please do not delay in applying for a spot. And please do also contact your student school if you need help with the online lottery application. Earlier, actually just a few moments ago, Sonia Gant provided a great report with wonderful news about our community support for meeting connectivity need in our metro area. And we know that the pandemic made the digital divide that much wider. But our community has shown when there is a community challenge, we can and we will rally together and meet that need. But the foundation's successful Connect for Tech initiative is but one example of community generosity in recent weeks. While the following examples are not exclusive of all acts of kindness we have seen recently, I do want to say a special word of gratitude to some who have provided help to our schools and our families. So first, I want to thank NASCAR legend Dale Earnhardt Jr. and the Dale Jr. Foundation for a generous gift of $135,000 to Allen Brook Elementary School. Principal Kim Vaught, when I talked to her after the announcement was made, she was absolutely surprised when Dale and his wife Amy visited the school and presented the check that will help with a number of initiatives at Allen Brook. And just today, 2 of our schools were presented with $10,000 checks from the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Foundation. The support from the Police Foundation for Martin Luther King Junior Middle School and Walter G. Byers School will help those schools meet students' needs as we prepare to return more students to in-person instruction. And so I again want to just express a heartfelt thank you for these donations. Again, this is meant to highlight just but a few of the many examples of community support. And I know that I speak for the district in saying that we appreciate all in our community who provide financial support and those who give of their time and expertise to make our schools better places for our students to learn and our employees to work. I would also like to share a few updates about our CMS nutrition programs. Since this summer, we have provided students with nutrition via our CMS Eats at Home effort. CMS Eats at Home deliveries end on Friday, October the 23rd. So not this Friday, but the following Friday. And the reason is because our buses will be fully involved in transporting students to and from school at that point. So beginning with the following Wednesday on October the 28th, pickup of our weekly meal bundles will be at no charge, and that will begin at 32 locations spread throughout our district. The school locations, I think it's important to note, they were identified with a wide geographical distribution in mind to the extent possible, but also where the kitchens and dining areas can actually support the necessary production and storage areas. And I want to particularly highlight what I'm going to share next. We are absolutely pleased to report that the weekly meal bundle pickups will be available for all students. And let me say that again, for all students, even if they are in school for only a portion of the week. There is now a waiver in place, allowing us to feed students 7 days per week. And as such, our students can receive their 2 meals in person each day that they are in school. So Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, and they can still receive a meal bundle for the remaining 5 days. The only exception to this would be our pre-K and EC students who are receiving meals in school 5 days a week. Also, our school nutrition services will provide daily breakfast and lunch to the CMS remote learning sites, as well as other locations around the community that are not official remote learning sites, but have applied to receive meals to support their daily programming with children. And Madam Chair and board members, I want to conclude my report with some additional great news. Just last week, the Charlotte Area Technology Collaborative held its Blue Diamond Awards ceremony. The Blue Diamonds Award recognizes exceptional technology, innovation, and talent in the greater Charlotte region in 9 categories. The judges represent a diverse group of experienced business and technology executives. And out of the 27 finalists, our performance dashboard was selected as the Blue Diamond Award winner in the Business Impact, Education, and Government category. And so I am pleased to share this news, and I want to particularly recognize Dr. Frank Barnes and the team that is led by Dr. Charles Mumpower with contributions by many that led to this honor. And Madam Chair, that concludes my report.
All right, ending on a high note. I will now turn to any board member who wishes to make a report. Ms. Shipp.
I just feel like I have to say something about the Equity Committee. As the liaison for the Equity Committee, just September 17th, the entire committee came together and made a report of the work that they have been doing. It was very impressive, thoughtful, well done. And each one of those 6 committees had a lot of work put in, showing research they had done, showing recommendations and next steps. And I think this is great work that they will continue to do and that we can use as we look at what we're doing in CMS with our equity initiatives. And I just wanted to say thank you to each and every one of these subcommittees. I had an opportunity to work with one in particular more than any of the others. And so I want to thank them for their work. And also Chiquita Lord, Ms. Lord, she did a great job as the coordinator. She's been doing a great job in leading the Equity Committee. So I felt like I had to bring this forward and just recognize them for the abundance of work they've been doing and let them know how much we appreciate each and every one of them on each of these committees. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Ms. Byers Bailey?
I was going to try to let others go ahead first because I'm once again in a position where I'm going to brag about Olympic High School and their CTE program, their NAF CTE program. This last week, Olympic High School participated in a national book tour panel discussion along with Avid Exchange and Author Carolina. It was booked as a national book tour panel discussion, but it was actually attended internationally. 3 of the participants that were in the tour, I'll try to pull this up now. Oh, wrong one. Well, the first one was Mike Raylon, who's had extensive background in several other things, but he's one of the Olympic High School's, let me see, Career and Community Development Coordinator. He's been very instrumental in their program there. The book was called the EQ Deficiency. Some of you may not know what EQ is, but that's emotional intelligence. And the whole panel was talking about how emotional intelligence is very often much more effective or required in today's economy for our students than in intellectual intelligence. And the book was about emotional intelligence. And Michael, along with, let me see, well, oh, I keep pulling up the wrong thing. Along with Chris Elmore, who's an entrepreneur, adjunct professor. And the third person was Blair Primus, who is marketing and talent management at Author Carolina. But it was just a really exciting opportunity for them to present what they've been doing at Olympic with emotional intelligence and helping the students there through the CTE program develop and blossom into having just great success. But this national book tour that the panel discussion was a recognition of the great work that they're doing at Olympic. That's it.
All right. Anybody else have anything to report tonight? I know we've been at this a long time. It's been a long meeting. Well, hearing nobody else, I will now entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Go ahead, Laura.
Motion to adjourn.
I'll get the second.
All right.
Okay.
Or Thelma can have it.
Motion
No,
from
you
Lenora
can
Schiff
go
with a second from Sean Strain. All those in favor, please raise your hands and say yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? All right, Madam Clerk, seeing no opposition, we are adjourned. Thank you all. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Thank you. Night.